People think that we are getting into World War III. I'm of the belief that we are entering into the most peaceful era man has ever seen. So park this here and I'll quickly move on to what's happening in India. Defense deals, intelligence, blue water capability. So आपका देश सुरक्षित हो रहा है.
Which is the most hated asset today? The most hated asset today is India. So what return is shown in the chart is the return you made in past. But what is not written is what will happen in future. I believe that now I think Nifty 50 and large caps will have challenges because Nifty 50 have 37% banks, 12% FMCG, 7-8% IT industry. And there are some challenges in all these industries. So Nifty 50 just completely ignored. We lived long in the market to figure this out that I was sitting in 2001-2 with one of the biggest wealth manager in the country. And the entire fund industry was hugely negative on equities. Fixed income चल रहा था, RBI relief bond 12% वाला मिल रहा था. Nobody was touching at equities. Nobody was looking at equities at all. We have seen that era. So it is not the first time this is happening and this is not the last time it will happen. Look,
everyone on this call is a victim of terrorism because this is not just about taking a bullet on your chest. It is about economic terrorism. It is about what it costs any nation in economic terms. So for that I'll have to take the help of Moody's because आप मेरे पर विश्वास नहीं करोगे पर Moody's पे जरूर करोगे. So Moody's ने ये research करी थी so they looked at India as a victim of terror. एंड बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग बात यह है कि सैड बात है, नॉट इंटरेस्टिंग, सैड बात यह है कि आपका देश, मेरा और आपका देश सबसे बड़ा एंड सबसे ओल्डेस्ट विक्टिम ऑफ टेररिज्म है. वी आर द लार्जेस्ट एंड ओल्डेस्ट विक्टिम ऑफ टेररिज्म इन द वर्ल्ड.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar session. Just a brief about Vijai Mantri Financial Services. We have over 100 years of cumulative experience across multiple market cycles, and our team brings not only the deep expertise, but also perspective and wisdom that only time, discipline, and real-world experience can offer. We also believe that wealth, when guided thoughtfully, becomes a powerful enabler of continuity, confidence, and integrational prosperity. What truly sets Vijay Mantri Financial Services apart is that our evidence-based approach, which is combining structure-based approach processes, disciplined execution, and insightful market intelligence to navigate ever-evolving market environments. Today we have Vijai Mantri sir with here, who was the co-founder, which was Vijay Mantri Financial Services was founded by him. He's also the former CEO at PGIM India Mutual Fund, Vice President at HDFC Asset Management, and AVP at Aditya Birla Group. His insight-driven and disciplined approach forms the foundation of our advisory philosophy. We have a guest, Karan Datta sir with here, who also has experience in the geopolitical shape. He has also been a part of the Axis Mutual Fund and Aditya Birla Mutual Fund in his past. Over to you, sir.
So thank you, Sanika, and thank you all the viewers for joining in. And first of all, thank you, Karan, for agreeing to this webinar. Our effort on continuous basis has been to get real quality people. We not only manage your money, but we also take care of your time. We believe that in today's world, time is the most precious thing. And if we are taking time from you, it means that we need to add substantial value to why you are joining us. And for that, we look at getting expert who give views which are very different from what you would hear on social media or the frontline media. So I'm extremely happy that Karan has joined us. We did a similar webinar a few weeks back, and whatever he told has actually worked. Me and Karan go back more than 30 years. He has a senior leadership role in Indian asset management business, Aditya Birla Group, Franklin Templeton, Goldman. He was part of Goldman founding team where he worked with Prashant Khemka, who is now current co-founder of White Oak. He worked very closely with him. Unfortunately, Goldman could not start India operation. I also, compliment Karan because he left a corporate job more than 10 years back. He could have been CEO of any mutual fund company, but he chose to spend his time for nation. He thought at that time that is very important, that India's story, what challenges India is really facing, what one need to come out in forefront. Me and Karan, we have been spending last 5 years together doing various webinars for various asset management companies and distributors. And what strike me is that for last 5 years, Karan has been continuously telling that the biggest risk to the market or economy is geopolitics. 5 years back, we didn't notice this too much. We didn't give too much importance to it. But actually, as things played out, the biggest risk has been the geopolitics. And he has been very consistent about various things, like when post Pahalgam, when India and Pakistan war was going on, he told me very clearly that it is just not number of days, it's number of hours India will finish it off, and he did it. Similarly, I remember that perhaps around the time when the Bengal election got election dates was announced, he's been consistently telling through all his social media that BJP is going to win big way, and he had a very interesting perspective on that. And you can look at his social media post; he's been very clear, and he's one, what he's been writing for last 4 or 5 years, and now you see the government of India doing various kind of things, including the Great Nicobar project, what we're doing on the in the Pacific Ocean, which I believe is a great geopolitical strength India has, which has not been exploited by us. Indus Water Treaty, all kind of things he have been talking, and you could see his YouTube video where he spoke about all these things. So I'm delighted that he's
Thank you
here
so
with
much.
us to
Thank
give us
you.
perspective on what is happening right now. So Karan, a lot of people know the background, but just
Yeah.
would like to hear from you
Hmm.
what this crisis, what is the real reason that US decided along with Israel to attack Iran?
Hmm. Hmm.
Number one. Number two, we hear the popular narrative that Iran is holding itself,
Hmm.
but you had a very different take on that.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
How is going to get unfolded? And then what do you see the future of the world and future of India? So I think in one question, I
Yeah.
ask you multiple questions. So over to you.
Thanks, Vijay, and thank you very much for inviting me. As usual, to be on a panel with you and to do anything that gets associated with you is an honor for me because I've learned so much from you. And you're right, we go back 2 decades, in fact, maybe even more than 2 decades. So we've seen the emergence of the mutual fund industry together and seen where it has reached today. Um, it's also true that अभी जितने भी geopolitical events हो रहे हैं उनका impact economies and then finally capital markets पे आ ही रहा है, and ये it's just that पिछले 3 से 4 साल में ये थोड़ा ज्यादा हो रहा है. And Vijay, you asked me some of the most from जो most important questions होते हैं कि ये हो क्यों रहा है, कैसे सॉल्व होगा और इसमें इंडिया का क्या एक्शन रहेगा आगे जाके. सो ये 3 चीजों को आई विल ट्राई एंड आंसर देम. सो टुडे आई डिसाइडेड इंस्टेड ऑफ गेटिंग स्ट्रेट इनटू Q&A ना, मैंने क्या सोचा विजय, इस बारी मेरे पास कुछ स्लाइड्स हैं which I've anyway prepared, and I do these slides very often when I do events. So I thought I will cover some of my slides, not all of my slides, so that there's a little bit of a background, because everything that we are seeing happen today, वो कुछ 4-5 साल पहले से ही उसका एक्शन स्टार्ट हो गया था. So if that's okay with you, I wanted to share some slides with the audience,
Yes, please go
and
ahead.
then we'll get into interactive question answers. So the title I had kept is is actually war games, events that are shaping nations. But what I wanted to tell everyone is, oops, I wonder why my slides are not moving. Hang on.
वो थोड़ा इसको हिला.
Ah, हिल गया. So
Now
actually,
it
Vijay,
moved.
if you notice, and for audiences, if you understand this, you will notice that पिछले 3-4 साल में आपने नोटिस किया होगा कि अब जियोपॉलिटिक्स आपकी जिंदगी का हिस्सा बन चुका है.
कैडी इसको
पेरेंट्स
फुल स्क्रीन कर देना प्लीज.
फुल स्क्रीन है ये.
नहीं, लोगों को दिख नहीं रहा फुल स्क्रीन. तुम थोड़ी स्लाइड मूव कर. स्लाइड मूव हो रही है क्या तेरी?
हाँ,
हाँ अभी परफेक्ट स्लाइड मूव.
तो ये फुल स्क्रीन आ रहा है ना?
Sir, it is showing full
मेरे तो आ
screen
रहा
for
है.
me. हाँ, मेरे लिए भी आ रहा है.
हाँ, फुल स्क्रीन है ये, आ रहा है ना?
Yeah,
हाँ हाँ
yeah,
हाँ,
ठीक है, so shall I continue?
या प्लीज।
Okay, so what I was saying is actually if you look at it, geopolitics अब आपकी जिंदगी का हिस्सा बन चुका है, and certainly in the last 4 to 5 years. So basically if you just notice conversations घर पे क्या होते हैं आजकल. And Vijay, you started by telling, we spoke about Bengal and all. As we speak, as we are talking, the ceremony for oath taking is going on. So a lot of conversations within the families are happening on politics, are happening on Israel, are happening on America, is happening on COVID, trade war, sanctions, and all of this is now come into the drawing room of people. ये जो जो ज्यादातर एक्चुअली जियोपॉलिटिक्स अगर आप वर्ड भी देखो ना, इट्स अ कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ ज्योग्राफी एंड पॉलिटिक्स. सो व्हेन यू मैच ज्योग्राफी एंड पॉलिटिक्स इट बिकम जियोपॉलिटिक्स. सो पॉलिटिक्स का इट पॉलिटिक्स इज पार्ट ऑफ दैट होल कॉन्वर्सेशन. And I mean, I'm just trying to say that certainly in the last 2 years, that the space of conversations have gone up. And if you want to understand why, कि ये 2-3 साल में इतना ज्यादा क्यों हो गया, आप देखिए ना हो क्या क्या रहा है. आप मेरा लेजर पॉइंटर पे आप फोकस करिए तो इट स्टार्टेड विद कोविड. इन माय ओपिनियन कोविड वाज अ बायो वेपन. अब वो वेदर इंटेंशनल अनइंटेंशनल वो सब मैं नहीं जा रहा हूँ उसमें, बट वेपन हो गया, एक रिलीज हो गया, वेपन रिलीज हो गया. उसके रिप्रिकॉशंस पूरी दुनिया ने देखे हैं, ऐसा नहीं है कि केवल हमने देखे हैं, पूरी दुनिया ने देखा है कोविड का रिप्रिकॉशन, उसका इम्पैक्ट. फिर अगर आप नेक्स्ट बॉक्स देखें तो इंडिया का क्लैश हो गया विद चाइना एंड गलवान 62. 62 के युद्ध के बाद भारत और चीन के जो रिश्ते थे उनमें कभी ऐसा कभी नहीं हुआ कि हमारे को युद्ध करना पड़ गया. पर गलवान में हमारे 20 सोल्जर्स शहीद हो गए. एंड नाउ इंटेलिजेंस सजेस्ट दैट अराउंड 98 to 110 चाइनीज सोल्जर्स आल्सो डाइड. व्हाट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर एवरीवन टू नो कि इस युद्ध में ये शायद 4 या 5 घंटे का युद्ध था. रात को था ये. एंड इसमें एक भी बुलेट फायर नहीं हुई थी. ये केवल हाथ से रॉक्स के साथ, जिसे कहते हैं बाब वायर के साथ. जैसे आप ऐसे सोच लिए 3,000 साल पहले अगर कोई दो दो युद्ध कर रहे हो लोग, कैसे युद्ध करते, पत्थरों के साथ, मेज के साथ, नॉट इवन विथ swords. So it was the most raw form of war in the 21st century, जहां पे इतनी एडवांस टेक्नोलॉजी है. यहाँ पे ये दोनों हाथापाई से मर रहे थे. And 20 Indian soldiers died, and like I said, about 110 Chinese soldiers died. ये भी हो गया पिछले 3-4 साल में. बालाकोट हो गया, उसके बाद क्रॉस बॉर्डर ऑपरेशन हो गए, पुलवामा हो गया. एंड अभिनंदन के बारे में तो खैर everyone knows. I mean, basically the reason why I brought this up is because cross border surgical strikes were not happening. In fact, not just on our western front. India ended up doing cross-border strikes even in Myanmar. And so both sides of India's border, हमने cross-border operations भी हो गए. फिर अगर आप देखें नेक्स्ट बॉक्स में देखें तो 20-22 साल के बाद अफगानिस्तान में तालिबान भी वापस आ गया, अमेरिका छोड़ के चला गया. For 20 years after 9/11 happened, 9/11 happened in 2001. 2002 या 2003 से लेकर 2023 20 साल तक अमेरिका बैठा रहा अफगानिस्तान में, वो भी छोड़ के चला गया, तालिबान वापस आ गया. एंड जैसे ही तालिबान वापस आया, मीडिया में बस यही था कि अब इंडिया की हालत और खराब होगी, बिकॉज नाउ तालिबान के साथ भी डील करना पड़ेगा. आगे अगर मैं आपको दिखाऊं कि पिछले 3-4 साल में क्या हुआ है. फिर ट्रेड वॉर. अभी तो हम लोग एक्चुअल वॉर की बात कर रहे हैं, बट अगर आप 6 महीने पहले रिवाइंड करें, every conversation was about trade war, sanctions, कितना टैरिफ लगेगा. सो फंड मैनेजर्स हो या फैमिली ऑफिस हो या रिटेल इन्वेस्टर हो, वो केवल ट्रेड वॉर की बात कर रहे थे. एंड प्लीज, एक बड़े इंटरेस्टिंग कॉन्सेप्ट है इसमें, दैट हर जगह वॉर का वर्ड बड़े इजीली यूज हो जाता है. सो ट्रेड इज इक्वल टू वॉर. And it's not as if you're literally fighting a war, but all of this comes under, as if there is actually youth going on. So trade wars were happening between the Americans imposed highest tariffs on India, lower than, I mean, the Chinese had lower tariffs than India. Even the Vietnamese had lower tariffs than India. So suddenly trade wars erupted. उस सब में रशिया यूक्रेन क्राइसिस भी चल रहा था. So there was an actual kinetic war going on. Then came Operation Sindoor. I will cover Operation Sindoor in one slide थोड़ा आगे जाके. This is now classic 88-hour war. ये तीन दिन का वॉर था. आज आज 9 तारीख है, 9th May. Today is the last day. Is the anniversary of Operation Sindoor का last day. Operation Sindoor started on 7th, ended today. 7th, 8th, 9th. 9th today 12 और 2 के बीच में सब खत्म हो गया था. So today is the first anniversary of Operation Sindoor. So actually, in recorded history, there is no such instance where a nuclear armed nation has gone and attacked another nuclear armed nation. India did that to Pakistan and finished it off in 88 hours. Like I said, आगे जाके I'll just cover one slide on it. और जब ये सब शांत हो गया, फिर ईरान इजराइल वॉर भी हो गई. So मेरा कहने का मतलब था कि ये तो सिर्फ 4-6 चीजें मैंने दिखाई हैं. इसके बीच में काफी कुछ हो चुका है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल नेपाल में या श्रीलंका में देयर हैज बीन अनरेस्ट. बांग्लादेश हैज सीन regime change. Pakistan mein pata hi nahi who runs the country, and I'm not getting into all those details, but you can see there's a pattern out here that over the last 3 to 4 years just so much has happened that it's bringing global and local events into prominence. And so what that means is this particular slide, that formats of war have changed. ये एक मॉडर्न जियोपॉलिटिकल बैटलफील्ड है. इसमें ना जरूरी नहीं है कि सिर्फ ड्रोन्स मिसाइल्स ही चले. सो इस स्लाइड को समझना थोड़ा जरूरी है, बिकॉज थ्रू दिस स्लाइड व्हाट आई वांट टू कन्वे टू एवरीवन इज युद्ध के जितने भी फॉर्मेट हैं सब बदल गए हैं. जो फाइनल युद्ध होता है, जिसके बाद जो मेरा लेजर पॉइंटर जहां पे है, वो काइनेटिक वॉर होता है, जो आज की डेट में इजराइल, ईरान और यूएस के बीच में चल रहा है. वो फाइनल आउटपुट होता है. जो रशिया यूक्रेन है वो काइनेटिक है. पर काइनेटिक अगर आप एक साइड पे रख दो मिनट के लिए इसको साइड पे रख देते हैं, विल कम बैक टू काइनेटिक. पर आप देखिए ना कितने अलग प्रकार के युद्ध चल रहे हैं. and I won't get into details on all of them, नहीं तो फिर टाइम ज्यादा जाएगा. बट मैं 2-3 जरूर शेयर करूंगा बिकॉज बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है वो 2-3. फॉर एग्जाम्पल इकोनॉमिक एंड ट्रेड वॉर तो चल ही रहा है. आज हम लोग, मैं और आप, थोड़ी इसके बारे में कम बात करते हैं बिकॉज अब वो थोड़ा साइड पे हो गया. बट ट्रेड वॉर वॉज द नंबर 1 इशू दैट इम्पैक्टेड अस, बिकॉज सर्टनली इन कैपिटल मार्केट्स इट इम्पैक्टेड. इंडस्ट्रीज एंड सेक्टर्स पे डायरेक्ट इम्पैक्ट आया था. फॉर एग्जाम्पल वेदर इट वॉज ऑटोमोबाइल्स और फार्मा और मैन्युफैक्चरिंग. We constantly spoke about trade war because the Americans were imposing sanctions and tariff, and tariff was increasing cost. Cost would have to be passed on, etc., etc. So economic and trade war has been part of the new format of war for a while, and it has been going on. Let me remind everyone कि अमेरिका पहला देश नहीं था ये ट्रेड वॉर को इंप्लीमेंट करने के लिए. अमंग्स्ट द फर्स्ट वंस टू डू दिस वाज चाइना. शायद आप लोगों को याद ना हो, बट जैसे ही कोविड खत्म हुआ तो ऑस्ट्रेलियन पार्लियामेंट ने डिसाइड किया कि बॉस हमको जरूर पता करना चाहिए, वी हैव टू फाइंड द रीजन ये कोविड हुआ क्यों. तो ये वुहान से स्टार्ट हुआ था, मगर ऐसा क्या हो गया कि वुहान से आते आते ये पूरी दुनिया में हो गया. ये ऑस्ट्रेलियन पार्लियामेंट ने डिसीजन लिया कि लेट्स फाइंड आउट द ओरिजिन्स ऑफ कोविड. आपको ये यकीन नहीं होगा कि इसके रिटेलिएशन में चाइना ने क्या किया. चाइना ने ऑस्ट्रेलिया के ऊपर ट्रेड सैंक्शंस लगा दिए. चाइना इंपोर्ट्स फूड डेयरी प्रोडक्ट्स, वाइन, कोल, fisheries, every item that the Australians were exporting to China and China was importing, उस पे चाइना ने डबल ड्यूटी लगा दी. सो अगर जो भी ड्यूटी थी उस पे 200% ड्यूटी लगा दी, simply because the Australian Parliament passed a resolution to find out the origins of COVID. तो ये तब से चला आ रहा है, ये नई चीज नहीं है. I'm going to come to something like the ones that matter the most. First we'll go to rare earth processing, जो जहाँ पे मेरा लेजर पॉइंटर अभी है. rare earth processing, there is nothing rare about rare earth. वो नाम थोड़ा गलत है. It's available in every country in enough quantity. In fact, India has the largest rare earth materials. In fact, our reserves of thorium are the largest in the world. And thorium का ये capacity है that even a small quantity can replace electricity for half the country. That is how powerful thorium is. Now, the problem with rare earth is that while it is abundantly available, 90% of its processing is done by the Chinese. इसकी जो processing है ये बहुत ही अनएनवायरमेंटल फ्रेंडली, इट इज नॉट एनवायरमेंटल फ्रेंडली एट ऑल, क्योंकि ये माइनिंग है, इसमें डीप एक्सकवेशन होते हैं, इसमें मशीन्स लगती हैं, फिर उस मशीन के अंदर प्रोसेसिंग होती है, एंड जो रेजिडुअल मटेरियल है वो एनवायरमेंट के लिए बिल्कुल खराब है. सो 30 से 40 साल पहले या 30 साल पहले यूरोपियंस एंड अमेरिकन्स ने इसको आउटसोर्स कर दिया यूएस चाइना को. सो चाइना ने खुशी खुशी इसको अपना लिया. They kind of knew 30 years ahead of time that if they have control on the processing of rare earth, then the world will be dependent on China for all final products. और exactly वही play out हो रहा है. आज की डेट में जितने भी देश हैं, 99% उनकी डिपेंडेंस फॉर रेयर अर्थ इज ऑन चाइना. और रेयर अर्थ की आज जाके जो यूजेज है वो आपके हर चीज में आ चुकी है, फ्रॉम लिथियम बैटरीज to sensors, to advanced missile technology, to advanced aircrafts. So suddenly the Americans are dependent on the Chinese. But उसका ही flip side देखिए, if I opposite side पे semiconductor warfare पे अगर हम जाएं, तो exactly the opposite is playing. इस सेमीकंडक्टर की जो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग है वो इतनी एडवांस्ड है कि मैं आपको कुछ I'll share some numbers with you. there's a the most advanced chip that has ever been made is a 2nn chip. 2nn का size is equal or smaller than coronavirus. So I'm going to repeat that. 2nn chip is smaller than coronavirus. It's smaller than the DNA of a human being. But can you imagine that human beings are making that chip? To make that chip is the most complex production capacity. एक मशीन $300 million की होती है, and it cannot be made. वो ASML करके कंपनी है नेदरलैंड्स में, वो केवल एक मशीन बनाती है $300 million की लिथियोग्राफी मशीन, जिसके थ्रू ये 2nn चिप्स बनते हैं. बट वो चिप बनाने की कैपेसिटी इतनी एडवांस्ड है दैट उसका कंट्रोल आज की डेट में बिटवीन द कोरियंस, द ताइवानीज एंड अमेरिका कंट्रोल्स ऑल ऑफ दैट. And they are not giving that to the Chinese. So the Chinese are not giving rare earth in some ways to the Americans, and the Americans are not giving advanced semiconductors to the Chinese. This is the foundation of all what you're seeing in the world right now. This is a power play between the Americans and the Chinese. This is a power play between the two superpowers, so to speak. And everything else that you see around you is basically to fix and see कि किसको कितना दबाना है. 14th March को Xi Jinping and Trump are meeting, 14th May को, in a few days from now. Everything that you are seeing play out, whether in Iran, whether in Venezuela, whether in Greenland, or whether in Panama Canal, finally will lead to discussions around rare earth and discussions around semiconductors. And so I'll just move on from this slide, because one of the things I wanted to share with you is there is a war that is going on, narrative war also, psychological operations and narrative. इसके तो हम लोग भी, we are also victims of this. For example, when I spoke about Sindoor, most times people refer to Sindoor as two things. हम इंडिया के कितने हवाई जहाज गिरे, how many aircraft did we lose, and why did we stop the war? अगर जीत ही रहते तो रोका क्यों? That's all narrative war. ये कोई कितने कम लोग पूछते हैं कि हमने पाकिस्तान पे कितना जोर से हमला किया. What did they lose? Very few people ask me this question. What did Pakistan lose? And many people ask me, did India lose aircraft? Now imagine, did India lose aircraft? That's 4 words. Can you imagine, just to make these 4 words, something like $18 to $20 billion is spent annually to create the way you and me think. So narrative war में हम लोग बिल्कुल घुसे पड़े हैं. We are in the middle of it. Actually, to tell you the truth, India is in the middle of all of these. ऐसा कोई भी box नहीं है जिसमें India नहीं खेल रहा है, whether actively, proactively or reactively. So whether it is cyber war or water wars, we are in the middle of all of them. and we are going ahead in spite of some of the limitations that we have. So we are playing the semiconductor game, we are playing the rare earth game, we're in the middle of trade wars, we've had a kinetic war, water wars with Indus water, etc. So I'm just trying to, the reason why I wanted to put this slide out is please don't think that you need to have a war of drones and missiles to be in the middle of a war. India is truly in the middle of all of them because India also wants to become a superpower in the times to come. And so what I wanted to quickly show you is this, ये मैं जल्दी से दिखा देता हूँ इसको, ये एक F-35 का फोटोग्राफ है एंड इस F-35 में जो जो चीज बनती है, कम्युनिकेशन सेंसर, प्रोपल्शन, एयरफ्रेम, नीचे ना जहाँ पे मेरा अभी ये लेजर पॉइंटर है, ये सारे रेयर अर्थ यूज होते हैं, एल्यूमिनियम, कार्बन, कोबाल्ट, गैलियम, कॉपर, लिथियम। ये हवाई जहाज अमेरिकन है, सबसे एडवांस्ड हवाई जहाज है, पर माल मटेरियल इसका चाइना से आता है। तो यहाँ पे अमेरिकन आर स्टक विद द चाइनीज। द नेक्स्ट स्लाइड इज मेकिंग वन चिप। द सेमीकंडक्टर का जो सप्लाई चेन है बहुत ही फ्रेजाइल है। वाइल टीएसएमसी ताइवान की कंपनी है, 90% एडवांस चिप्स बनाती है, बट लाइक आई वाज टेलिंग यू, उसकी लिथियोग्राफी मशीन नेदरलैंड से आती है, उसके मिरर्स कार्ल ज़ाइस जर्मनी से आते हैं, एनवीडिया उसके चिप्स की ब्लूप्रिंट बनाता है, एंड जापानीज फर्म उसके एडवांस टेक्नोलॉजी बनाते हैं। सो कहने का मतलब था, वाइल ताइवान कंट्रोल्स 90% चिप्स, बट द इकोसिस्टम is controlled by the Americans. So this war is between rare earth on one side and semiconductors on the other. If the Chinese don't get the semiconductors, they cannot become a power for the next wave that is coming on AI, on drone technology, on robotics, on satellite systems. Then the Americans will go far too ahead. And if the Americans don't get the rare earths, then they cannot build actually जो माल मटेरियल बनाना है, building material, aircraft material, जो मिसाइल बनानी है, then the Americans cannot make it. So it's a completely boxed in structure, and everyone is trying to figure out how to get the best bargaining chip. And from there, I want to come to Vijay's question कि ये हो क्या रहा है दुनिया में, ये अब why are the Americans and the Israelis and the Iranians fighting, what is going on? I'm going to take some time. ये section थोड़ा important है, अगर इसको समझ लिया हमने, then I think lens बहुत clear हो जाता है। नहीं तो lens ना, नहीं तो क्या होता है, we start looking at every event in isolation. I have stopped looking at these events in isolation. I'm looking at them through one common lens, which is terrorism. So let me give you, I'm going to share the slides with you. अभी मैं बात करूंगा, but I want you to think of this as, जो अभी अमेरिका और ईरान एंड यूएस का जो, इजराइल का जो वॉर चल रहा है, उसका नाम है रोरिंग लायन एंड एपिक फ्यूरी. Americans call it epic fury, Israel calls it roaring lion. What I want you to start thinking is roaring lion, epic fury, operation Sindoor. ये तीनों एक जैसे हैं, ये तीनों एक ही हैं, और ये तीनों का लेंस भी एक ही है. एंड उसका मैं रीजन आपको बताता हूं कि दुनिया और देश का जो नंबर 1 कंसर्न है वो है टेररिज्म. आपको मैं कुछ ऐसे आंकड़े दिखाऊंगा, स्टैटिस्टिक्स दिखाऊंगा, जिनको सुन के आप हैरान रह जाओगे. I ask this question to everyone who comes to listen to me, and my question is, are you a victim of terrorism? क्या आप आतंक के शिकार हैं? Many times the response I get is, नहीं, हम आतंक के शिकार नहीं हैं, we are not a victim of terrorism. They take it literally, and I'm going to prove it to you. Everyone on this call is a victim of terrorism, because this is not just about taking a bullet on your chest. It is about economic terrorism. It is about what it costs any nation in economic terms. So for that I'll have to take the help of Moody's, because आप मेरे पर विश्वास नहीं करोगे, पर Moody's पे जरूर करोगे. So Moody's ने ये रिसर्च करी थी इस so they looked at India as a victim of terror. And बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग बात ये है कि, सैड बात है, नॉट इंटरेस्टिंग, सैड बात ये है कि आपका देश, मेरा और आपका देश, सबसे बड़ा एंड सबसे ओल्डेस्ट विक्टिम ऑफ टेररिज्म है. वी आर द लार्जेस्ट एंड ओल्डेस्ट विक्टिम ऑफ टेररिज्म इन द वर्ल्ड. तो मूडीज ने एक टाइम फ्रेम लिया, ये 20 साल का टाइम फ्रेम लिया, जहां पे मेरा पॉइंटर है. They studied terrorism in India from 1994 to 2013. This is a 20-year period. In that period, India faced 6,024 terror attacks. 6,024 from 94 to 2013. And what is really remarkable is that इसमें खालिस्तान terrorism है ही नहीं, because that was an era of the 80s. Can you imagine इसमें Maoism, Naxalism and Khalistan terrorism नहीं है, and फिर भी your country faced 6,000 terror attacks, which is one terror attack a day for 20 years. And the data that they suggest, when they figured it out, then they said one large terror attack. अभी किसी भी देश में they said that अगर large terror attack होता है, तो it takes away 0.5% of GDP in the year of the attack and takes away 2% investment growth in the year of the attack, which is quite obvious. अगर एक बहुत बड़ा आतंकी हमला होता है किसी भी देश में, स्पेन में, जर्मनी में, फ्रांस में, अमेरिका में, लंदन में, इंडिया में, तो उस देश की आर्थिक जो व्यवस्था है उस साल 0.5% गिर जाती है, क्योंकि काम रुक जाता है, टूरिज्म खत्म हो जाता है, इन्वेस्टमेंट नहीं आती है. But one large terror attack. India has faced 6,000 terror attacks. I am not saying, neither is Moody saying that all of them were large attacks. But I want you to remember, and I can prove it to you right now, there is not a single city in this nation that did not come under an attack for that 20 years. It's an open challenge to anyone sitting in this call today. आप कहीं पे भी बैठे होंगे, that city would have come under a terror attack. Hence, every year, at least there has been one large terror attack on India till 2013 and one large terror attack over 20 years. So if you compound 0.5% of loss for 20 long years, India has almost lost 1/3 of an economy to terrorism, because you have to compound 0.5% GDP loss for 20 long years, because we've had at least one large terror attack every year for the last 20 years. कनिष्का, बॉम्बे, कांदाहार, ट्रेन ब्लास्ट, ये ब्लास्ट, ये तो मैंने सिर्फ बॉम्बे के दिखाए हैं. मैं दिल्ली पे आऊंगा तो ऐसी लंबी चौड़ी लिस्ट है. जयपुर, अहमदाबाद, चेन्नई, अमृतसर, कोलकाता, बैंगलोर, हैदराबाद, पुणे. कोई ऐसा शहर नहीं और कोई ऐसा टाइम नहीं है जहां पे एक लंबा चौड़ा ब्लास्ट ना हो. बट व्हाट हैज हैपेंड इज 2014 से लेकर 2026 तक दैट नंबर हैज कम डाउन सब्सटैंशियली, बहुत गिर चुका है. एंड दो चीजें हो चुकी हैं इसमें. अब इसमें दो बहुत चेंज आए हैं. एक तो जो टेरर अटैक में उनमें दैट नंबर हैज कम डाउन ड्रामेटिकली, एंड जो हो भी रहे हैं वो साउथ कश्मीर के 100 किलोमीटर के रेडियस पुलवामा के अंदर हो रहे हैं, जितने भी हो रहे हैं. एक तो 100 किलोमीटर के रेडियस के अंदर हो रहे हैं, एंड दूसरा वो आतंकी हमले आर्मी के अगेंस्ट हो रहे हैं ना. मैं ये नहीं कह रहा हूं कि वो अच्छा है या बुरा है, मैं ये कह रहा हूं एटलीस्ट सिविलियंस के अगेंस्ट नहीं हो रहे हैं. एंड इट्स हैपनिंग अगेंस्ट द आर्मी विच इज प्रिपेयर्ड, विच इज एक्चुअली armed to tackle this kind of terrorism also. There's only one terror attack that took place, वो अभी दिल्ली में हुआ था. दिल्ली के रेड फोर्ट एरिया में ब्लास्ट हुआ था. उसमें भी 300 किलोग्राम बारूद एंड एक्सप्लोसिव्स वर फाउंड. Unfortunately, एक कार बच गई और that exploded, and that was the only recorded terror attack in the last 14-15 years. As soon as it reversed, आप देखिए what has happened to India. That actually what I'm trying to say is that this is not about the market. अगर आपका देश ही सुरक्षित नहीं होगा तो आप markets का क्या करोगे? I was in Surat yesterday and I was making the same point that if your country is not safe, how can you expect capital markets to be safe? But if your country is safe, your capital markets and economy will become the number one. And that's exactly what has happened in the last 14-15 years. And this is not a political statement. This is facts. In the last 14-15 years, the number of terror attacks have come down dramatically, and see what that has done. People are coming to invest. India is getting bigger. Make in India, this India, satellite launches, capital markets all-time high, 4th or 5th largest economy. People want to come and invest. They're seeing that it's a consuming nation. सब reverse हो गया. But इसकी जो foundation थी, that you had to prove to the world that you are a safe nation. And वो करने के लिए you had to take steps. Now the steps that I have taken is from now onwards. And this all ties in with what is happening in the world. Every slide is about what's happening in the world. In India, the new doctrine is a terror attack on India will be considered an act of war. ये मैं नहीं बोल रहा हूँ, ये आज का हमारा नया थिंक, ये नया डॉक्ट्रिन है. It has now been implemented. So we don't look at anything now as a terror attack. A terror attack is an act of war. India will not tolerate nuclear blackmail. And terror sponsoring का जो regime है और the state है, whether you're called Jaish-e-Mohammed or you're called ISI, both will be looked like as if they're the same. And offensive defense is our new doctrine. So पूरा lens ही बदल गया. अब हम terror attack को terror attack नहीं देखते हैं. We think of it as an act of war. Act of war changes everything. Act of war का मतलब state will respond to the state. यानी कि जो पूरी स्टेट की क्षमता है, पूरा जो स्टेट की मशीनरी है, वो एक्टिवेट हो जाती है. You take yourself as if you are in a state of war. And that has resulted in Operation Sindoor. People don't, that's what I keep telling everyone, that you have to look at whatever is happening with that one common lens, which is act of war. So Operation Sindoor came about because we looked at it as an act of war. Just one slide, because I don't like to spend too much time on Pakistan. It's an irrelevant nation. In fact, it's just a 24th province of China. But this one slide I want to show everyone. Please look at my pointer. Right now I'm showing you Bhulari, which is in Karachi. ये yellow dot Bhulari है, और सबसे ऊपर मेरा पॉइंटर जा रहा है यहाँ पे. स्कार्डू है ये POK में. सो ये जो ऊपर से नीचे भोलारी से लेकर स्कार्डू, ये 1400 किलोमीटर का डिस्टेंस है. एंड जो डीपेस्ट पॉइंट है वो है जकोबाबाद. ये है जकोबाबाद येलो में, ये 400 किलोमीटर डीप है. ये सारे येलो में जितने भी आप येलो बॉक्स देख रहे हैं, ये सारे मिलिट्री इंस्टॉलेशंस हैं. सो भोलारी से लेकर स्कार्डू तक 1400 किलोमीटर वाइड एंड 400 किलोमीटर डीप इज व्हाट हैपेंड टुडे. टुडे इज इन 2 घंटे में जो भारत ने किया था पिछले साल, वो रिकॉर्डेड हिस्ट्री में विल बी कंसिडर्ड एज क्लासिक एयर डोमिनेंस. इसके ऊपर बहुत किताबें आ चुकी हैं, इसके ऊपर मैंने इनफ रिसर्च पढ़ ली है. इसे जो टाइटल है वो कंप्लीटली करेक्ट है. पाकिस्तान गॉट डेसिमेटेड ऑन 9th May 2025. देयर इज एब्सोल्युटली नो डाउट अबाउट इट. इनके जितने भी मिलिट्री इंस्टॉलेशन से दे वर हिट. एंड ये जो रेड में आप देख रहे हैं, दीज वर द ओरिजिनल टारगेट्स. बहावलपुर, मुरीद के वगैरह, दीज आर द 9 टेरर हब्स दैट वर अटैक्ड ऑन 7th May, रात के 1 से लेकर 1:20 तक. टेक्निकली इंडिया के लिए ऑपरेशन सिंदूर 20 मिनट में खत्म हो गया था ऑन 7th May. We hit the terror targets and came back. But obviously Pakistan escalated. People don't tend to realize this also. And I must share with you that the real hero for Operation Sindoor was air defense. एक time था Pakistan sent something like 1100 drones in 1 hour. None of the drones got through. None of them. Because India used Pinakas, we used legacy systems, we used Akash missile systems, we used spiders, we used at least 8 different layers of air defense to not let anything come in. And people keep saying कि $10,000 के ड्रोन के पीछे 1 मिलियन की मिसाइल लोग छोड़ते हैं. ऐसा नहीं है. इंडिया ने $10,000 के पीछे $100 की बुलेट फायर कर थी, इतनी बड़ी. So legacy systems got integrated into air defense. And I'm just trying to leave this idea with you that 88 घंटे में लड़ाई स्टार्ट और खत्म करना, वो in itself is quite remarkable. And कल ही इसकी कॉन्फ्रेंस भी हुई थी. And Director General Military Operations of Pakistan literally did call up the DGMO in India and requested for a ceasefire because the hits were massive. And that is why the more I'm going into this talk, I'll prove it to you that we are entering into a new era altogether, an era of peace. People think that we are getting into World War III. I'm of the belief that we are entering into the most peaceful era man has ever seen. So park this here and I'll quickly move on to what's happening in India. Defense deals, intelligence, blue water capability. So आपका देश सुरक्षित हो रहा है. We are ready to take on anything, anywhere, anytime and at any point in time. So whether it's Rafales, nuclear submarine, ये सब action चालू हो रहा है and हो ही रहा है. What this means is national security is equal to economic prosperity. Many times मैं लोगों को बोलता हूँ, if you are economically secure, you will be a safe and secure nation. वो equation गलत है. ऐसा नहीं हो सकता है. you can, like for example, Dubai is UAE is an economically secure country, but is it a nationally secure country? No. India is not a very economically strong nation, but we are a secure and powerful defense country. And so national security is equal to economic prosperity. It's not the other way around. और अगर ये हो गया, so जो आधा परसेंट 0.75% GDP लॉस था, वो एक्चुअली कन्वर्ट हो जाएगा इनटू गेन, विच वी आर सीइंग. एंड जो डिविडेंड है उसकी वजह से आएगा इंक्रीज्ड FDI, investor confidence, and surge in investments. So for the next 20 years, I am actually predicting the reverse is going to happen. Because you're becoming a much more secure nation, you're kind of telling the opponent that we are now in a state of war. You've announced to the world that आप अगर मेरे पे हमला करोगे तो मैं पूरी ताकत के साथ आपके पीछे आऊंगा. So next time a terror attack will be thought through 50 times, 100 times anyone will think before they act, because this means that the entire machinery of India will come after them. And I'm not trying to dramatize anything, because yehi ho raha hai. So I am of the opinion that act of terrorism on India will come down very, very sharply. That will result in a dividend that will help make India more economically powerful. Exactly what is happening in the Middle East. And so the Middle East conflict also has to be viewed in the same lens. If you look, this is Israel, बहुत ही छोटा देश है. It's surrounded by Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Turkey, Iran. So it's a small country. It has had a very, very tough existence. Every nation around it wants Israel to be wiped out. So just for history, they fought wars with Egypt and Jordan and Syria, but सब सारी लड़ाइयाँ जीत जात के. So basically, everyone has attacked Israel in the past. Israel has virtually won all the wars, and they were all set to sign the peace accord with Saudi Arabia. Sign होने ही वाला था that on 7th October 2023, जैसे just the peace accord with Saudi Arabia was being signed, Hamas launched their attack on Israel on 7th October 2023 and from Gaza. ये पूरा इजराइल है, ये गाजा है, छोटा सा जगह 21 किलोमीटर का है. सो गाजा में इन्होंने अटैक लॉन्च किया. 1500 हमास के फाइटर, लैंड, एयर एंड सी, they came from Gaza and they attacked all the villages that are around this place, all out here. And they killed about 1,700 Israelis, took away 400 hostages, all on 7th October. Now, the thing is, the Israelis just did not expect an attack from Gaza. The Israelis were all set for, every day they were expecting an attack from here, where my pointer is, from Hezbollah. It is not Hezbollah, it was Hamas that went and attacked. And that is a deception, that a perfect deception हो गया. 15 साल का deception was created कि attack यहाँ से आएगा, आ गया यहाँ से. What that meant is 1,700 deaths, 400 hostages. When Pahalgam happened, India said it's an act of war. When 7th October happened, Israel said this is no longer an act of terror, it's an act of war. And in that, Hamas was not alone. By the way, ये slide मैंने 3 साल पहले बनाई थी. Just after October event, in November, I made these slides. So Hamas is not alone. Actually, if I'm writing it today, I should have written Hamas was not alone. So I'd written that time. They had the potential support of Hezbollah, Egypt, Iran, everyone. Hamas had the full support of everyone. And in particular, Iran in particular was equipped with extremely dangerous missiles and drones of highest quality. ये सारी मैंने 3 साल पहले लिखी थी, पर मैंने ये भी लिखा था that Iran will not step back. It is going to finish this once and for all. It is a war game, which means of escalation of epic proportion and the start of new geographies. This had categorically written on somewhere around middle of November 2023, because this was an act of war for Israel. From that time till today, they have dismantled Hezbollah. They have finished off Syria. Yemen and Houthis are done. They have finished off every possible. If you remember the pager and the pager attack, the cell phone attack, they've destroyed every possible threat that can come. And now they've gone and destroyed Iran as well. And now I've come to the conclusion that we are entering the most peaceful era of the world also, because Iran has also got dismantled, just like Pakistan got dismantled by India. Nothing is left in Iran. The entire leadership is over. The entire navy, the entire air force, their entire structure of missiles, most of it is over. The nuclear weapons are deep buried into, like, the access to those nuclear weapons can only happen if someone goes too deep to excavate it. Today, their leverage is, can you imagine? Today, they don't have a single ally. A Muslim nation does not have a single Muslim ally in the region. So Iran is isolated. Its entire machinery is destroyed. Its entire leadership is finished. Its entire defense industry is finished. Its industrial capacity is over. So much so that the Americans have hit over 9,000 targets. There is a company called Palantir. Kabhi bhi time mile to look it up. It specializes in target acquisition, and the Ukrainians are using it against Russia. It's the most expensive stock in American stock markets right now. They've hit over 9,000 targets. They've reached a point where the Americans have finished with the targets. And that is why they've called for ceasefire. Before the ceasefire was to happen, I again mentioned it, कि ceasefire होके ही रहेगा. This war will not start again because everything is over. This war is over. For all practical purposes, all the war objectives have been achieved. Let me explain to you now. Oil. This is the latest photograph. All the oil is now moving from Cape of Good Hope from Africa. And this is a photograph of all the tankers going into Gulf of Mexico, picking up oil from America through Venezuela and coming back. So जितना भी Hormuz का जितना भी traffic था, वो अब Cape of Good Hope से जा रहा है. ये आप ट्रैफिक देख सकते हैं. ये सारा का सारा, basically America has become the new supplier of oil and gas to the world. So I want to make this clear distinction. Oil is not equal to gas. The problem the world is facing and will face is on gas, not on oil. India will face issues not on oil. Oil supplies from America and Russia will continue. Our problem will be gas, and we can discuss this in Q&A. And so what I wanted to share with all of you is that, in my opinion, I'm just quickly taking you to the section that matters the most. All of this, these black swan events are leading to, so commodity prices are going up. There's inflation in the world. There is disruption in supply chain. All of this is happening, trust. But for me, the most important thing is the end of state-sponsored terrorism. So जहाँ इतना पेन दिख रहा है, सबसे बड़ा गेन दुनिया के लिए ये है कि स्टेट स्पॉन्सर्ड टेररिज्म का अब खात्मा है. पिछले 50 साल में इजराइल ने, इंडिया ने, काफी देशों ने टेररिज्म बहुत हद तक झेल चुके हैं. ये 50 साल का बिजनेस मॉडल अब खत्म है, क्योंकि अब हम ऐसे टाइम पे पहुंच गए हैं कि टेररिज्म का आंसर अब वॉर है, एंड नो वन कैन अफोर्ड अ वॉर. वो अब दुनिया ने देख लिया है. आप सोचो, एक कपल बुर्ज खलीफा में बैठ के कॉफी पी रहा है, एंड सामने से ड्रोन आके, a drone hits the burj or hits a hotel. Some couple sitting in Dubai having coffee is having to bear the brunt of terrorism because an attack took place on Israel through Hamas in 2023. उसका रिजल्ट 3 साल के बाद इनको यहाँ पे दिख रहा है, in the word in technically called war. But the start was an act of terror. So the world has realized that no one can झेलो terrorism like we've झेलोed it for the last 50 years. So I am of the opinion that we are entering the most prosperous time human beings have ever seen. But there are some structural shifts taking place. My last 2 slides, after which I'll open it up to Q&A. Some of the structural shifts that the world is seeing, we're shifting from globalization to localization. सबको अपने देश में बनाना है. सबको चाहिए कि make in India, make in America. The globalized world is over. From a unipolar world, जहाँ पे केवल अमेरिका पावर रहेगा, we are shifting to a multipolar world. India, China, Russia, America, many countries will become powerful. From outsourcing, we are shifting to insourcing. नहीं चाहिए outsourcing का माल, अपने को घर पे बनाना है. From immigrants, we are shifting to locals. Immigrants across the world are being shunned, including in India and in America. from allies and defense pacts, वो टूट रहे हैं, NATO टूट रहा है. You are shifting towards independent defense. आपको याद जान के हैरानी होगी that all of Europe had only 1% allocated to their GDP to defense. Today that 1% has become 4%. Can you imagine defense stocks and metal stocks in Europe have gone haywire because 1% से सीधा 4% पे आ गए हैं of GDP. Japan has become post World War II. It's rebuilding its defense capabilities. And from outward, we are shifting to looking inward. So with these structural shifts taking place, my final point is that the foundation national security matters most. If the period is of a peaceful era for the next few decades, then please handle investments carefully, avoid its mistakes in booming times, and seek help from advisors like Vijay, whose only job is to look at all this and advise carefully. Last thing I'll say, there are many, many resilient industries. Focus on things that are not moving because that's where the real story is between pharma, IT, etc., etc. So I'm going to stop here with the point that my opinion is that we're entering a fairly interesting zone of a very peaceful world. And from here onwards, I do think that it will have a very positive impact on economies, capital markets, and certainly on India. So I'll stop here, and Vijay, anything that you may want to know, if anyone else may want to know, I'm happy to answer. So, Vijay, I'm sorry, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So if there's any question that anyone has in the chat box or anywhere else, then I'm happy to answer based on either this or any other question that people may have. Maybe in the chat or in the do we have a question answer section out here somewhere?
So just mentioned that we are opening the questions. So I'll just
Okay.
start.
So there is
Yeah, I've requested Mr. Abhay, I've unmuted him. In the meantime, Kamal Vora has asked, what is the view on defense?
yeah, I can see a lot of questions coming on. So Abrar, why is the US talking to Iran? It should finish it off. No point dilly-dallying. Actually, Abrar, to be honest, जितने भी military targets होते हैं, as defined by military objectives, that they have all been met, which is why the Americans are not taking more action. And I must clarify out here. So Abrar, good that you brought this up. What is happening now is a classic blockade. It's a classic siege. What the Americans have done, they've shut down Iranian ships to take oil from Iranian ports and flow to China. And basically what that means is that Iran cannot export its oil to China. Once that happens, and over अब 2-3 हफ्ते हो चुके हैं. So what it means is that the oil that is coming out of the oil wells has to be stored somewhere because अब वो export तो हो नहीं रहा है. Now Iranians are running out of storage space. Finally, when there's no storage left, in 2 weeks' time, they'll be left with no storage space because now all the oil is coming up. It's not getting exported. It's filling up. When the storage space finishes, you have to shut down the oil field. And once you shut down an oil field, you cannot restart it. So the Iranians are losing 25% of their revenue, 60% of their GDP, 25% of their GDP, 60% revenue they're losing. And in 2 weeks' time, they have to start shutting down oil wells as well, which is why the Americans do not have to fire a single missile now. If the Iranians don't take a decision of handing over the uranium or having a 20-year moratorium on their nuclear weapon and opening up the straits, then the Iranians' economy is finished once and for all. That's why they are not taking any further action. The Americans don't need to. Kamal's question is, what is my view on defense stocks? So Kamal, this is an area I study a lot. There is a lot of story in the defense sector. In India, that sector has already run up a lot. So the thing is, and this is something which Vijay will also agree to, sector is excellent, but stocks are very expensive. So we have to look for, so the way to look at it is, Kamal, we have to look for the first defense stocks which are undervalued, under researched. वहां पे अगर कुछ मिलता है तो there is a very, very good story. Um, if the world become, Anand is asking, if the world becomes safer, will the spend on defense continue? Actually, Anand, ulta hai. World will become safer when everyone invests in their defense. So अब NATO भी टूट रहा है, UAE भी बोल रहा है I will invest in. So what is happening with India's BrahMos? We are exporting BrahMos to Philippines. We are exporting it to Indonesia. Who will they use it against? Against the Chinese. So it's not about war, it's about defense capability. And so this is what is happening, that in an era where everyone wants to project power, defense spend will go up, but wars will come down. This is the point I was trying to make, that in an era where state sponsor, I mean, people will want to protect their own nation first, and for that they will do whatever it takes. So defense spend will go up, but conflict will also come down. So Bhavik has a question.
So good point, Karan. And actually, if you see, we are talking about Korea, we're talking about Taiwan, people about Colombia. But till few months back, the narrative was to international investing only looking at US. These countries were not in radar.
Yeah.
So it is very difficult to figure out when to invest in these countries. And in my opinion, you hear all kind of stories that how much money TSMC is making, how much money is SK Inc. making, Samsung making, and why India market is the most hated market for FI. So Latin America became the most hated market once, Europe became the most hated market, Japan became the most hated market, China became the most hated market few years back. East Asian countries became the hated market. MENA region became the most hated market. So it happens. It is a phase, like a sector which become hated. The sector was darling, now has become hated. It happens, a part of the market cycle. So don't read too much into this. Just one point. Just look at the data for the month of April alone. You'll get some very really interesting insight. We're talking about Korean market going up 28% in the month of April. I guess some very interesting data about Indian market. Indian defense is up 24%. Realty is up 22%. Capital market is up 23%. And if you look at last 5 years CAGR, defense CAGR for last 5 years is 58%. That is Indian defense. So there are opportunities available everywhere, including the Indian market. And Katie, I was just reading an advertisement. Israel is asking for caretaker for elderly persons.
Yeah.
2 lakh rupees per month is a compensation they are offering. Okay. There's an advertisement which came under Skill India. Approximately 2 lakh rupees, a number of opening is 3,500. Just a tiny country with a population of less than 2 crore is asking 3,500 Indians at a 2 lakh rupees pay package. Katie, can you speak a little about Nicobar Island, what India is doing, and state of Malacca, which I believe is going to be equally, it could be a chalk point for China.
Yeah. So I'll quickly come to that, and because there's a question also kind of related to that. I'll take two questions together. Where Abrar is asking whether China is supporting Iran, and the other thing is about scenario where state-sponsored terrorism by Swapnil. China will be enthused to venture into Taiwan. I think that's the point. Now, the real story is that people got to know about Hormuz simply because वो एक choke point बन गया. I'm going to show you guys something. There's a book I'm reading called Choke Point. उसमें 28 choke point हैं, and सबसे बड़ा is not Strait of Hormuz, it's actually Malacca Straits. Malacca Straits में क्या है, 70% of all trade passes through Malacca Straits, where, because that's trade between the Chinese and the rest of the world, including us. But uski jo proximity hai, that's closest to India. And the point Vijay is actually making is, if we have Nicobar, where we are planning to make it like another Singapore as an economic development hub, plus a security, plus a plus a base for security, which basically means Malacca Straits will be then semi-controlled by India. Ships getting in and getting out of Malacca can get choked, can get blocked, and that can have a substantial impact on China. They've already figured it out. The Chinese are not fools. They knew that this is something that can happen, which is why they created the China-Pakistan economic corridor. The one that runs through all of Pakistan, starts at Balochistan and ends at Pakistan occupied Kashmir. So they found ways. The Belt and Road Initiative is a counter to this blockade. So I think the point with I don't want to complicate it too much. The point I'm trying to make is the big boys are playing, the Chinese are playing, the Americans are playing, and so are the Indians. But in this battle, in this war that I'm talking about, it's about making sure that your supply chains don't break. Because imagine if one of these days the Chinese stop supplying rare earth to you. So suddenly what has happened is after COVID, we had given this uh, there was a new law that had come that border nations have to take special permission from government of India to invest, and उसमें Chinese investments हमने बंद कर दी. Of late, that has been removed, and we are starting to take Chinese investments. So JSW का जो plant बन रहा है along with MG is because India is now asking China to invest in India. So the things are moving, and yet, so here is the way I like to explain it. With China, we are friends and enemies at the same time. So it's complicated, it's moving ahead. China is not ready to take on Taiwan. It doesn't have the military capacity right now. The Americans have uh, kind of shown in the Iran war the kind of capacity that they have. I don't think the Chinese have that capacity yet. Will they have it by 2030? Possible. Will they want to go for Taiwan in 5 years, 6 years' time? Yes, that's a possibility. By that time, the Americans and the Indians would have also probably come together and created, along with the Australians, a credible ability to stop the Chinese from taking those kind of actions.
I have also unmuted Abhay, but he can ask his questions in the meantime.
Sure.
Abhay, so you can unmute and ask your question.
If we can't unmute, then
Hello.
Swapnil. Yeah, sorry, go
Hello.
ahead. Hi.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me now?
Yes, no, I can.
Actually, sir, my impression is that even in China and America both do not like India to have the developments. So even if they are not friends with us, do you still believe that India is in a position to defend its interest and growth?
Sir, so look at it this way. We are not playing a game where we want where we're asking for someone's likeness or dislikeness. It's a very serious game of geopolitics. Now, the thing is, with the Americans, we never had the best of relationships. In the 71 war, they sided with the Pakistanis. And even during Sindoor, I mean, I don't want to get into details, but India has the highest tariff in the world because probably India hit American interest during Sindoor. So ऐसा नहीं है कि ये relationship बहुत strong है. Even with China, it's not as if we have a great relationship. I'm just trying to make the point that India has to be self-sufficient. Please don't expect anyone to come to your rescue at any point in time, as the Europeans have seen, as the rest of the world has seen. India has to be self-sufficient in defense, in technology, in space, as far as its own economy is concerned, and has to be acting on terrorism as well. And which is the point I'm making constantly. Like for the last 15 years, we have been taking steps to make sure that we become stronger. But it's a journey that will take much longer than the last 15 years because so much catch up has to be done.
So much catch up because
So-
we have just recently started.
So, sir, ऐसा है.
In chips, in data science, in AI.
Absolutely.
They
Now
are
the
the
thing
giants.
is,
They are the giants and we have just started. So
Sir,
the effect may come in this decade or it will come in the next decade.
so this is where I want to tell everyone that कभी कभी अगर आपकी दिशा सही होती है ना तो डिस्टेंस भी आ जाता है. But as a nation, we had to get the direction right. And this is where I feel as if now we've got the direction right, the distance will come.
Okay.
There's a question that has come which I must answer. Swapnil has asked, what is this difference between gas shortage and oil shortage? It's very, very important to understand the difference between the two. Oil is petroleum, gas is LNG. LNG is liquefied natural gas. Its transportation and the way it is used is completely different from oil. Oil is what you see in coming through tankers, and so there our capability exists to import from Russia and from America. पर एलएनजी के सप्लायर जो हैं उनमें से सबसे बड़ा था यूएई, पर उसका यूएई का एक सेंटर कतार था. कतार का एक लास रफान में एक सेंटर जो गैस का जो एक सप्लाई सेंटर था, दैट हैज बीन हिट. उसकी कैपेसिटी 20% हिट हो चुकी है. उसको बनने में 4 से 5 साल लगेंगे. उसकी वजह से दुनिया में गैस की शॉर्टेज होएगी. एंड यूरोपियंस ऑल्सो नीड गैस. एंड गैस का सबसे बड़ा सप्लायर था रशिया. पर अगर यूरोप रशियन गैस खरीदेगा तो फिर वो अगर देन इट विल सपोर्ट रशिया अगेंस्ट द यूक्रेनियन वॉर. सो द यूरोपियंस कैन नॉट बाय रशियन गैस. दे ऑल्सो डिपेंड ऑन मिडल ईस्टर्न गैस, बट मिडल ईस्टर्न गैस की सप्लाई कम हो गई है. It will make the prices of gas go up and supply chains will take time to rebuild. I foresee problems for India, for China and for Europe on gas supplies. उसका एक second and third order level ये impact भी आएगा that fertilizer costs could go up. There can be some issues on food security. So while I'm very, very bullish as far as peace and prosperity and economic prosperity is concerned, in the next, if we don't get the Hormuz opened up in the next 2 weeks, then there can be some implications on food security for next year.
I have also unmuted Mr. Vasant. He's raised his hand. You can ask your question.
Yes, sir. Basant sir, are you asking your question? Otherwise, I can take one from the chat box.
We can take one from the chat box.
Hello, yes.
Yeah.
So the thing is, I mean, the Americans are trying to control the dollar. I mean, it is the dollar which is the main thing at stake. Why why we are allowing the dollar to become a supreme thing?
I won't get into the details of why we're allowing, but I come from the camp that there is a lot of story. I mean, okay, let me rephrase. I don't come from a camp of supporting the dollar, but from what I'm reading, de-dollarization may not happen very, very, very soon. In fact, जो भी कुछ हो रहा है दुनिया में, Venezuelan oil is now with the Americans. Cuba is also under direct threat by the Americans. Iranian oil will also finally come to the Americans. Greenland will also come to the Americans. In that sense, I think de-dollarization नहीं होने वाला है. My opinion is re-dollarization. Dollar will get stronger.
बट
Because-
वेनेजुला पे जो है उन्होंने तो फोर्स करके उसके प्रेसिडेंट को ये किया है. आई मीन वेनेजुला में जो हो रहा था, दैट वाज आई मीन टू सम एक्सटेंट डोमिनेंस डिक्टेटरशिप था, बराबर है.
Sir,
But,
देखिए ना, so there's a reason for it. And by the way, when I comment on all this, it's not as if I'm siding with the Americans or siding with someone else. I'm just giving hard facts. Venezuelan oil was being shipped to China in yuan, and the Chinese were using Iranian oil and Venezuelan oil and were not paying for it in dollars. And they were using all of this to kind of in turn support Iran, and Iran was using that money to support terrorism. All of that has not got shut down. So you have to see the big picture and try and understand कि ये हो क्या रहा है. And that's what I keep telling everyone, that आप एक एक चीज को आइसोलेशन में देखेंगे ना तो समझ नहीं आएगा, थोड़ा जूम करके देखेंगे तो शायद बिग पिक्चर देखेंगे तो समझ में आएगा. सो द अमेरिकन्स वांट द डॉलर टू बी द डोमिनेंट करेंसी and they're going to shut down all forms of financial manipulation which may lead to some form of, let's say, um, some form of action that can hurt Israel. And we are doing the same. हमने भी यही किया था पाकिस्तान के साथ. We put them in the FATCA grey list, FATF grey list, so that they cannot access money easily. Exactly what we did to the Pakistanis.
I mean, I feel India should not support Israel as well. Israel is being, I mean, our Indian Prime Minister went to Israel for having a meeting with him just one day before the war started.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
I think the way to look at this is that the ties between Israel and India are now extremely deep. We secure a lot of, in fact, Operation Sindoor has a lot of action because of Israeli technology. There's a drone system called Harop. Harop was used extensively. They share intelligence with us. They are a common enemy against terrorism. So if you start listing down where all our interests are aligned with Israel, it's a very, very big list. With Iran, so here is the beauty about India. We're actually dealing with Americans and we deal with the Russians who don't talk to each other. We deal with the Israelis and we deal with the Iranians who don't talk to each other. So India does not take sides. We work with any side that with whom our interests are aligned. So I don't think it's fair to say that we only deal with the Israelis. With Israel, we have a deep tie-up. But in Iran, we've had substantial investments. Chabahar port was created by India only. And we used to import a lot of oil from Iran till the sanctions came. So I just want to make clear that India avoids taking direct sides. We always align with nations with whom we have strategic help coming our way.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Most welcome, sir.
I have also unmuted Mr.
But one thing is for sure.
Sorry,
go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, so you can speak, Karan, sir.
No, I was just saying maybe there is only one actual enemy in that sense that we will not stop naming, and that, like I said, is a nation that supports terrorism, and for that we will do anything to protect our citizens. Okay.
I have also unmuted Mr. Prakash.
Okay. Can we take that as the last question? Because Prakash, if you have your question, then happy to answer.
Yes, Karan, take the last question. Absolutely no problem.
Vijay, there's one for you. Navneet ji has a question, very interesting. Given the market conditions, what kind of asset allocation would you recommend across equity debt? So I think, Vijay, let's take that because even I'll be very curious to know, because whatever you say, I listen to it very, very carefully on asset allocation. So let's do that. I'll take the last question after that.
So in my opinion, we see which is the most hated asset today. The most hated asset today is India. So what return is shown in the chart is the return you made in past. But what is not written is what will happen in future.
Yeah.
So whenever you see asset category which is delivering less than 10% return, India almost there. So I think you need to have a little patience to have that. In India, I believe that now I think Nifty 50 and large caps will have challenges because Nifty 50 have 37% banks, 12% FMCG, 7-8% IT industry. And there are some challenges in all these industries. So Nifty 50 just completely ignored. Look at what potentially can happen on healthcare, potentially can happen on manufacturing side. In spite of all the challenges, below the surface, there are many exciting things are happening in India. Just like Karan was telling me, and Karan can reconfirm this, One of the most industrialist state in India is Gujarat, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu. And all these states do have ports. Now, West Bengal alone can add close to 1% of India's GDP. So, in my opinion, manufacturing, power, energy, healthcare, after some time, mid and small cap are the sector where one could look at going forward. But Nifty 50 completely avoid. Very honestly, I don't see Nifty 50 doing anything earth-shattering. They may do well for 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, but long-term trajectory is very different. And Nifty is largely legacy companies is a part of the portfolio. So this is where I would look at. Even within US, I would look more at US value, not the IT, because US value, in my opinion, is much better bet today than it was earlier. People, the challenge is, for instance, look at Korea has given more than 100% return. In the month of April, is delivered 26% return. But the question is that in 2016, from 2016 to 2026, the total return is just 73%. So what time we should have picked up these ideas? So there are certain ideas which look very good on the screen, but very difficult to catch them. For instance, silver. Now look at the performance of silver. The question one need to ask oneself is that how much you could have allocated to silver and which investor got it right, picking in the bottom and selling at 4 lakh rupees or whatever the highest price was, and how much part of their portfolio got invested in these ideas. So don't get caught in these tiny things, but focus more on what is your total portfolio. Can you compound your wealth at double-digit plus on the entire portfolio? If you get that, I think you're a winner, in my opinion, rather than chasing which is going to be the next hot end. So that is my assumption. Have some allocation in the fixed income where you need money for next 3 years. Keep that money in the fixed income and fixed income only. Don't move that money anywhere else. Currently, I'm not looking at investing in gold at all because 10-year return of gold is hitting 18 to 19, 20%. The last time we have seen was November 2011, and then the gold prices has for 1 year has done well, but for 3 to 5 years has not done well. So allocate something to debt, but large money need to go in the idea I discuss. And one of the most hated segment of the market is India. So look at India.
Every word you said, Vijay, I totally agree. In fact, अपना तो लगता है like to like सेक्टर भी एकदम like to like है. मैंने भी अपनी, if you noticed, मैंने भी slide में pharma manufacturing डाला हुआ था. So I totally agree with you. I think for everyone on the call, that is why you need good advice, because we tend to look and run after the best performing 1 year sector and fund. वो कभी पैसा नहीं बनता उसमें. पैसे तभी बनते हैं जहां, जैसे वर्ड आई थिंक विजय यू यूज्ड, हेटेड सेक्टर में. पैसे हेटेड सेक्टर में ही बनते हैं. Real wealth is created.
Just look at year 2000. Who was touching at PSUs? Few years back, who was looking at BHEL, BL, Hindustan Aeronautics? They were called commodity stocks.
Yeah.
And today they have 18 months order book full.
Order book full. Who would have thought that that can be the story?
Who would have thought that, companies like DMart and companies like Nestle's and companies, all the FMCGs, Dabur, will not deliver even double-digit return.
Asian
who thought?
Asian
Paint, HDFC, yes, who thought? Okay. So market sector keep rotating, the ideas keep rotating, the consumption patterns are changing much faster. So I'll just give you one data. Suppose you're a FMCG company investor, you should be really scared. If you look at one of the consumer tech company, 73% of their order come from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. in the morning. Now that window was not available. Okay.
Yeah.
And we lived long in the market to figure this out, that I was sitting in 2001-2 with one of the biggest wealth manager in the country. And the entire fund industry was hugely negative on equities. Fixed income चल रहा था, RBI relief bond 12% वाला मिल रहा था. Nobody was touching at equities. Nobody was looking at equities at all.
Yeah.
We have seen that era. So it is not the first time this is happening, and this is not the last time it will happen. Look at from 2008 to 2013. That was a era where, HDFC म्यूचुअल फंड में एक स्कीम में रोज का 10 करोड़ रुपए का रिडेम्पशन हो रहा था, और वो सारा का सारा पैसा रियल एस्टेट में जा रहा था। क्या हुआ उसके बाद रियल एस्टेट? क्या रियल एस्टेट का क्या हुआ उसके बाद? वी ऑल नो. So in my opinion, Indian equities are very honestly one of the most predictable asset category. Live with little bit of volatility, live with a phase where you don't make money. But from these level, if your horizons are 3 year plus, it's a good time to accumulate.
On that, Vijay, I also wanted to end by saying that, and from a geopolitical point of view also, these are going to be some of the best times coming up. So that's, I don't want people to believe that this is World War III. वो time खत्म हो चुका है. So the message I want to give is markets are looking, well, stocks are looking extremely attractive. Plus the world is also reaching a stage where will become more stable. And I think India will play a really important role in that. उसका भरपूर फायदा उठाइएगा आप.
सनिका, ये पार्ट ऑफ द वीडियो सेव करना, मैं करण बोल रहे हैं ना, आज के 3 से 5 साल बाद देखिए, हम आज रिकॉर्ड कर रहे हैं 8 मई 2026 को. इसको प्ले करना 3 साल बाद, 5 साल बाद क्या होता है, आप इसको सेव करके रखिए. हमारा ओपिनियन है कि इंडिया विल बी वन ऑफ द बेस्ट परफॉर्मिंग इकोनॉमी, वन ऑफ द बेस्ट परफॉर्मिंग मार्केट्स.
Yeah.
All right, sir.
Yeah.
On that high note.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karan.
So
really
appreciate you taking out time out, and thank you very much to all of you for joining.